Hello everyone, it's 8:20 on Thursday for a very special edition of the Football Lounge. And yes, there is no international football today, so you stuck with us. Keep it short and sweet here with our intros at FTSN. And once again, the ever-present master ceremonies, Colm joins me. Colm, you're getting a bit of a break from watching the World Cup. How are you feeling, buddy?
I'm feeling quite good, thank you, mate. I'm happy to be back on one of our staple shows. I'm glad that this isn't World Cup related. As much as I do enjoy football and the World Cup, it can get a little bit tedious.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as our show sponsor does crop up in the chat, we were coming to the necessary business of talking about our sponsors. So, Colm, will you take that part away from me?
I will try to. Hopefully, I don't butcher this. So, we are proudly sponsored by Global Mapping Surveys. What's Global Mapping Surveys? I hear you say. Yes, it's pantomime time. Global Mapping Surveys currently assists architects, property developers, and construction companies all over the country. They offer a wide range of services such as setting out, topographical surveys, 3D laser scanning, and monitoring. The link to their website is in the description, and you can get their contact details there. Thank you so much to Global Mapping Surveys for that. We are also an official partner of Rafe Esports Energy. Now, Rafe is an energy formula, powdered energy formula, which is mixed with water, so it is a water-based energy drink. It's a healthy alternative to the generic cans that you can buy in the shops. It's got a clean, zero sugar, antioxidant-rich formula, so it's designed to give you the edge that you need in any kind of competitive gaming, or even if you're a streamer. We get a 10% discount with these guys, so scan that QR code and use code FTSN22 to receive your 10% off.
Lovely stuff, Colm. And obviously, we are very grateful to the sponsors for all they've done. And if you do want to know what a topographical survey is, I'm sure our sponsor, Global Mapping Surveys, will be delighted to explain it to you in the chat. But Colm, there
Oh,
is
no,
one
they won't. I'm sorry. I'm sorry,
He's behind you. But Colin, we do have one other small, exciting bit of business, and that is the competition.
Yes, we do. So here on Full Time Sports Network, we are doing a competition at the minute, and it is going to be drawn on the first lounge show after Christmas. What do I do to get into the competition? It is very, very simple. Just comment. That's all you have to do. Comment whilst we're live or comment after the show. We do go through and we'll speak to you in any comments. Obviously, we bring comments up on the screen, talk to you about that. Even after the show, we'll get in touch with you and talk to you after the comments. So for any chance to win your football team shirt, do comment and we'll pick that winner.
Excellent, excellent, Colin. Thank you very much. And just so that there's no in-house picking of the hot ball out of the draw drum, we, the FTSN presenters, are of course banned from the competition. But it's come to that point now where, for technical reasons, my camera will be going off as we get into the meat of the sandwich. I hope to have this sorted short because there's a new ISP coming, and hopefully that will give the magic wand that I can keep this wonderful mug looking at you as we progress through the show. We mentioned
Rebel not knowing which one's mute and which one's turning off his camera.
There we go. We managed it, lads. It's been accomplished. Now, Colm, the transfer we've obviously been talking about Manchester United a lot lately and prospective owners, and Laurie Whitwell done a nice little piece in the Athletic again, discussing various aspects and the difficulties between Glazier owned shares and publicly traded shares. But we're not here to talk about that today. There's a change of pace, and that is with the transfers. And over the years, there's been some phenomenal transfers. Like Ruud van Nistelrooy going for 19 million at the time was a big deal. Rio Ferdinand becoming the most expensive defender in English football at the time was a big deal. We had Leicester hoodwink us for Harry Maguire, and it looks like at this stage that Fofana could be struggling to live up to his price tag, although there's a lot of ability there at Chelsea. And who can forget the absolute record breakers that were the Neymar and Mbappe deals? But there's two transfers, and there's a similar fee being mentioned for them, and I'm going to roll them in. One is Cody Gapko. The other one is one that has been announced today, and that is of a young Brazilian by the name of Endrick. 60 million euros upfront with a possibility of an extra 12 for a lad that still hasn't gotten the right to shave yet. He's 16 years of age. Colin, notwithstanding some of the big ticket news breaking headlines that we've spoken about there, where does this rank in the all time list of oh my gosh?
Well, I mean, if we're going to be realistic about it, then this is going to change how the transfer market works completely. This is going to change everything. You're going to see prices of players shoot up dramatically. So, for instance, we've just been saying that Gakpo has been roaming around 60 million, I believe, 60 million euros. If if they can get that for a 16-year-old that's got no experience really in the world of football and is still learning his trade and doing this and that, then why can't Gakpo be worth 120 million euros? Because he's done it. He's doing it at club level. He's doing it at international level. So that's is literally going to change the whole landscape of the pricing in the transfer market, and it's a worrying fact that he's going to do that.
Absolutely. Like, I suppose in one way, the 60 million part of it's not the eye watering part here. It's that this is 60 million upfront. Like, if, like, just kind of spitballing it out there, Column, if it was 10 million up top, and that there was an unconditional lifetime while he's at the club. If he wins a La Liga with us, X amount goes to you. If he scores X amount of goals or assists X amount of goals, you get a top up. And have a structured top up system reach you all the way to 60 million, where at that stage you'd be saying, yes, he's a 60 million euro player. But realistically, Colin, it does seem that this guy will not be in first team football for at least what, 3, maybe 4 seasons?
I mean, realistically, they've brought him for a striker. Obviously, I know he is getting on a bit, but Benzema's still their number one striker. Let's face it, he's not going to dislodge Benzema just yet. Maybe he's coming in there to play in the youth and the reserves a little bit more, get used to La Liga football. I know it's still a massive step up from youth and reserve to full La Liga football, but maybe he is the replacement that they're looking at for Benzema. And fair enough, but the price tag is eye-watering. It really is. I work with some Real Madrid fans, and they are not happy with this at all. Yes, they really like the player, and they think he's going to probably be the next big thing. And for that kind of money, he needs to be the next big thing, and he needs to do it very, very quickly. They're not happy the fact that they've had to pay 60 million euros for a 16-year-old with no experience whatsoever. Let's face it, he has played some games, but nowhere near the level of what you'd expect for a transfer fee of 60 million.
Very true. It's quite clear that if he is the Benzema replacement, that he's probably going to need someone that'll provide a bit of buffering space. But I am going to play devil's advocate for a moment, and I'm going to cast your mind back to Senior Wayne Rooney. And what age was he when he scored that wonder goal against Arsenal, Cullum?
Well, you make a very good point. You make a very, very good point. But, see, the difference is, for me, he already had a little bit behind him at that point. Because, I mean, United did spend a fair bit of money on him, but he'd already played games. He weren't coming in as like a fresh piece of meat entirely, if that makes sense.
what you're saying is he was playing Premier League football. He was catching the eyes and the imagination of the major clubs in Premier League, and Sir Alex Ferguson was the one that pounced first on
Yeah,
the.
I mean, I mean, when I'm just trying to look. So he joined United in. I'm trying to remember what year it was he joined United. This is testing my memory. 2015. He joined United.
Tender age of 17, I believe he scored his first
Yeah,
Champions League hat trick, wasn't it?
it was. It was. I was trying to remember whether it was 20. I can't remember what year it was, but he had a handful of games anyway. He had more than what this young lad Endrick had under his belt. So he's played English football all of his life as well. So he's used to all this kind of hustle and bustle. Like I said, he's played a handful of Premier League games for Everton in the time as well. So he's kind of adapted. Whereas this is a 16-year-old I think he's played a majority. I think he's played 3 games in his whole professional career. So I think there's a big difference.
That does cause concern, I suppose, and especially if you're a Real Madrid fan that's watching this. Now, the interesting part of this column, obviously, Fabrizio Romano has reported that this is a done deal and that Real are hoping to get the documents completed and signed off during the month of December, ready for January as window opening. There's no doubting that he's seen as the crown jewel of the next set of Brazilian players. Obviously, subject to nothing going wrong in his development and all the rest of it. We do realise that footballers need an element of luck, and sometimes they will hit their ceiling far sooner than would have been envisaged. But 60 million plus 12 million in taxes. I think this is the first time ever I've seen a transfer fee broken down into 2 quantums like that. We normally look at 60 million plus X amount performance based, but this is literally saying taxes.
Yeah. So I just want to correct myself. 2005, he went to United, and by that time he'd already had 34 Premier League games under his belt. So I had to do a little bit of research there because my mind went completely blank. But yeah, this is interesting that they're adding the taxes onto the end of it. I can't remember seeing anything like that before. Normally, from people I speak to that look into a lot of the transfers and whatnot, they don't tend to say how much they're going to pay in taxes, and obviously the whole undisclosed fee. So you'll see 60 million undisclosed fee or something that normally refers to taxes added onto it. So they don't actually tell you how much in taxes they're paying. But it's really interesting to see how open Real Madrid are just being with this. Like, yeah, we've just paid 60 million up front for him, and then we're going to give him 12 million in taxes as well. It's a really strange thing to see for me.
And for me too, because I suppose thinking back though, Spanish football, there has been many investigations in regards to taxes. So maybe this is part of the evolution of what's going on in La Liga, that they're looking for a full set of transparency up front that is documented, I suppose, by the relevant commissioners over there. Now, these are his stats column. Do you want to give us a quick talk through them?
Yeah, sure thing. So obviously we can see here, like I said, he's only 16, but he can play centre forward, left wing, right wing. He has played a total of 14 games in his whole professional career. 14 games. Okay, he scored 9 goals and got 1 assist. But I mean, I wish I could speak to somebody in the Real Madrid hierarchy to see where in these 14 games justifies the price tag that they've just paid for him. Because I can't see it. For instance, I mean, I play a lot of Football Manager and stuff like that. I know it's different because it's not real life, but if I saw somebody on 14 games a season, I wouldn't be paying 60 million euros up front for him. It's just crazy. And this is the things that the people that I spoke to, the Real Madrid fans that I spoke to, they're saying it's absolutely crazy. He's barely even like touched a blade of grass in the world of football, and is going for the price that he is. It's a really confusing one. I don't understand it at all.
Yeah, I'm struggling to deal with the whole concept. Now, if you go back to his picture again just briefly, you'll see that he's not exactly the most well built of young fellas, and he's going to be coming up against well drilled, well oiled defensive units in Spanish football. We've seen United struggle against the likes of Villarreal and Sevilla to break them down. Barcelona and Real Madrid obviously have heavyweight defenses, but obviously he won't be worrying about the defense of Real Madrid except in training. But is it a baptism of fire? And could you actually see him farmed out on loan next season?
It probably wouldn't be the worst thing for him. Go in there and then go straight back out on loan or something. Keep playing your football there wherever this season. If he goes back to where he's just come from, go back to Serie A, finish your season off at Serie A or something like. It's not as physical and competitive. If he doesn't, I'm struggling to see when he's going to get game time because we can see obviously he's 16. He might be quite decent. He might be able to hold himself, but he's coming up against fully grown men in a more physical league than what he's used to. And it's like whilst you were talking, I'm thinking, well, maybe they could throw him in cup games and use him as a cup player, but teams like, for instance, Cadiz and all these other kind of lower ones, they're very physical against the big teams because it's their only chance to win a trophy. So I really kind of worry for him because unless he's able to hold himself against the really tough, strong players, he's going to get absolutely battered week in, week out.
Do you know, for me, there's one destination that might actually aid his development, and I wouldn't be inclined to send him back to Brazil. I'd actually be inclined to maybe look for a little loan partner in a certain league that our manager came from, because that could be particularly the likes of Ajax. If they got a hold of him, they would do exactly what Real Madrid would need a club to do for him on loan. They would culture him, they would they would develop him, and they would send him back a lot further down the road than when he arrived in Amsterdam.
Yeah, I mean, that is an option, we've seen a lot of talent come out of the Eredivisie, especially recently over the last 2-3 years or so. But I mean, you can look at it that way, or you could also think about, what is another club that's really good. The youth is excellent. The nurture them, the train them. Dortmund, Borussia Dortmund, send him to the Bundesliga. It's still physical, not as physical. Bundesliga football, you have a bit more time on the ball, unless you're playing Bayern Munich for some strange reason, because Kimmich is an absolute monster when he's charging down the ball. But Borussia Dortmund have a fantastic way of developing youth talent. So maybe send him there for a season, or maybe even two, just to help him develop.
It did have no problems anyway, that's for sure. And you forgot that not only do they have Kimmich, they have Gravenbach as well, who came from the Eredivisie. But the reason why I mentioned the Dutch league is there's two segues now that are coming out of this. One is in regards to interest in Cody Gapko for United, and the other one is that Real Madrid are also poking around one of our players. We'll take the Gapko thing first. And those of us that are amateur detectives are starting to try and read between lines in his press conferences because he does seem to be suggesting things without actually saying them. Now, Colin, I think we do have some of the quotes here.
We've got Garnacho and Rashford.
No, we don't. So I get him up on my phone. But Cody Gapko, 60 million euros. And he's a player that's obviously gone up in value since last summer. We could potentially have had him for 30 at the end of last summer's transfer window, but obviously we splashed the cash on what is going to be a super player in Anthony, and it now looks like we're going to return for Gapko given the departure of one Cristiano Ronaldo, and obviously he's not strayed away from the controversy since either, but that is for another show. But Gapko in his last interview said, that was a tough period. Speaking to the Dutch newspaper NRC, I learned from that I'm going to do it differently. What comes, that comes. That was in relation to last summer's transfer window. When you're supposed to go from RKC to PSV, but the club is not coming, then you can panic. I thought about Manchester United, and when that didn't happen, I couldn't remember. And I started to doubt. Leeds did come in, but I asked myself, should I go there? Now I wait everything. I haven't heard from Manchester United yet. When they come, I'll think about it. I'll also seek the help of God in these decisions. So he's saying when they come. Now, maybe that is a translatory issue and the use of the possessive vowel or verb. But is there something to be read into these Cody Gapko flurries to the newspapers as part of his World Cup duties?
100%. 100%. There's something to be read there. I've spoke with quite a lot of people, not just I've spoke with loads of fans, and a lot of fans are reading the same kind of things that United fans are reading. I've spoke to Arsenal fans, Liverpool fans, Chelsea fans, not just United fans, and a lot of them are saying that Gakpo is going to United in January. That is what it's going to be, and I've seen other people and spoke to other people as well, and they are saying as well Gakpo is pretty much a done deal. They're not obviously going to announce it or anything because of the World Cup and whatnot, but it's pretty much by the end of January transfer window, Gakpo is going to be a done deal and he's going to be a Manchester United player, which I am more than happy with because I think he is a fantastic player.
Absolutely, and it was interesting actually when he left for international duty. There was a few stories going around that the equivalent of Van der Sar at PSV is not expecting him to return after World Cup. Contrast that to, obviously, Ronaldo will not be returning to Manchester United. Was there writing on the wall a long way back? And did United pick up phone, do you reckon, and start talking about this from a couple of weeks out?
I think, obviously, this Ronaldo thing's brought a lot of stuff to light, but I think that this was probably in the works way before that interview even came out. I think Ronaldo knew he was going in January one way or another. Like, obviously he's gone before January now, but one way or another he was going to be gone in January. And I think Gakpo to United was probably already done at that point as well, but they just didn't want to say anything because we've still got Cristiano Ronaldo here, and he's our focus point. He's making us all the money, all this, all that. He's the main star for United. So yeah, I think this Cody Gakpo deal it's not a deal yet as such, but I think it has been going on for a lot longer than what people actually think.
Now, I am going to ask your opinion on this. There are other United channels around the place that have stated that it's not a done thing at this point, that there's two players under consideration. The other one is a Portuguese teammate of one Cristiano Ronaldo, and that is João Felix. Now, I don't think any of us doubt that he's an extremely talented player. However, there are a number of factors. Number one, his age. Number two, the reasonings as to why he's after falling out with current manager Diego Simeone. Now, obviously, he's got a temperament, Simeone, that could be hard to get on with, but he's a player that seems to be a feast or famine in terms of his output on the field. And looking at Gakpo, there seems to be a higher ceiling to him. And the fee that would be commanded, as well as the wages that would be commanded by Felix, would seem to absolutely erode any possible differential that you'd see at this present moment between the two deals.
Well, yeah, they're both 23 years old. Obviously, Gakpo is more versatile as such. He can play all across the front three. He can play left wing, right wing, centre forward. Whereas Felix is a centre forward, right wing, and a cam basically. It's funny that you've gone into this because I've actually pulled up their stats on my side of the computer here. So it wasn't planned. This wasn't planned at all, but it was just interesting to see. And so Gakpo has had 106 appearances compared to João Felix's 120. In those times, Gakpo has scored 36 goals. Felix, who has had 14 more games, has done 39 goals. And Gakpo's assists is 39 compared to Felix's 29. So out of the two, I would prefer Gakpo. Yeah, okay, I'm not going to take it away. Felix is a good player. He is a good player. Is he a Premier League player? No. Not in my eyes. He isn't a Premier League player at all. He wouldn't be suited for the Premier League. Personally, for me, he wouldn't. And why would we pay? Because I know Gakpo's price at the moment, or what is quoted at price, is still lower than what Felix's would be. I think Felix is 70 million euros and Gakpo's is somewhere around the 50, 55 million mark. So it's a no-brainer. Save yourself, 15, 20 million and get somebody that's giving out a better return and a better output.
Absolutely. Now, there are some storylines going through the various social media sites at the moment. A number of people have said that it's a no-brainer to go for Cody Gapko. Another interesting line that's coming out of Manchester United is it doesn't appear that we're going to pursue making the loan of Martin Dubravka permanent at Manchester United. It's now becoming a very, I suppose, farcical transfer at this point, given that he has not been used at all and is literally filling a bench space in general. But one interesting one is yet another Portuguese. The young hat-trick hero has already had €100 million price tag slapped on him. I presume this is all kind of kicking on from this whole Endrick thing that silly money transfers are going to be the flavour of the month. But we are kind of rapidly shifting towards our 9 o'clock deadline. So I'm going to come at you with a few rapid fire topics. The first one is taking a small wee break from transfers, and that is Ten Hag's continued admiration in Zidane Iqbal. He has continued to impress the gaffer, and it looks like he's now being convinced to assimilate him into more and more first team duties. Obviously, last year he broke a lot of different records, becoming the first player from, if I butcher this, it's Iran, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the first Iranian-born player to play for Manchester United. He's a very humble guy, from what I can see. I've been following his Twitter postings, and it does seem like he's very grounded. Is this a welcome development for Manchester United? Because obviously Danny van der Beek is another player that seems to be surplus to requirements at this point.
I mean, he's kind of... United fans will have known about him a little bit, but not too much. You know, we saw him in the pre-season as well, and he looked absolutely amazing. Held his own against some of Premier League professionals in some of the pre-season friendlies as well. He's a very, very exciting young player. We just need to make sure we're not pushing him too much too soon, because we've seen what that can do to players. You know, we've seen some... I mean, I'm going to say Makeda, for instance. You know, he came on the scene. He looked like he was going to be this really, really good player, and then we pushed him too hard and he fell off, basically. We don't want that with Zidane. Zidane looks like an amazing young talent, and I am really excited for his future at Manchester United.
Yeah, there's definitely a number of them. Ethan Laird, Charlie Savage. Obviously, young Garnacho is already starting to make his presence felt. And Shola Shortiri looks like he's also trying to catch the eye of the gaffer, amongst many, many others. It's the first time in a while that we've had such a sprinkling of youth talent that possibly could make it into being an integral part of a Ten Hag squad. But if anyone knows how to develop young players, it is, of course, Ten Hag and his team, because he's from the Ajax production belt. So it's not exactly surprising that he's going to start getting the best out of some of these players. But to sum up for finish, there's two players that we haven't yet spoken of. Real Madrid are interested in one, Paris Saint-Germain are interested in the other. It seems that they're not content with just getting the pride of Brazil coming to them, but they're also looking for our young Argentinian, Mr. Garnacho. and PSG are, believe not, oh, we'll do this one first. Come, Real Madrid are interested in Manchester United forward Alejandro Garnacho, according to Revevola. After moving for Endrick, Los Blancos are keeping an eye on another operation that defines its transfer policy. Young talent that in a few years' time will be considered the best in the world. If they come knocking, Column, how hard would it be for Garnacho to resist the temptation to play for the white of Los Blancos?
It'd be incredibly hard. Real Madrid are one of the biggest teams in the world, and they are constantly challenging every single year for trophies, the big trophies as well. But I hope and I pray that he just knocks it off and says he wants to play his football in Manchester, in the red of Manchester, because this young man is special. He's come on, he's changed games, and he's only a young player himself. He's got so much room to develop, and he should stay at United. Okay, if you want to leave in the future, I don't know, 5-6 years time, then okay, you go and leave in the future. You got to do what's best for you. But you have one of the best managers that helps young talent grow. We've just said this. With Eric Ten Hag, he's one of the best people you can have. Stay at United and develop. You're developing it in the best league in the world. So if they do come knocking, I don't care how much they huff and puff and try to blow the house down. Just stick with your guns and stay at Manchester United. And if you need backup, FTSN call on Twitter, Garnacho. I'll come and help you.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, things are all developing in terms of possible changes of ownership at Manchester United. So maybe it might come a time where the Los Banco players might be going, actually, I fancy playing for United in Premier League. So that could obviously alter a player's perception in terms of going after the big trophies. But there is another player that's been linked, and he was linked last summer to Paris Saint-Germain, and that is Marcus Rashford. He's having a great World Cup. He's got 3 goals, I think, at this point so far. And it looks like after denying that they want to do anything to get Ronaldo on board, that they do feel that it's possible to maybe attract Marcus Rashford to Manchester United, or from Manchester United to Real Madrid. And they expect to make contact with the player whose contract expires in June. Now, that is very significant for Manchester United in that we can do nothing about it should he decide to sign a pre-contract with them in January. But how hopeful are you that the club executives will look to at the very least protect the value that they have in Marcus Rashford? And is this a deal that should be resisted at all costs, regardless of what happens in the future that might impact who can come in next summer to club?
Rashford's an important player for Manchester United, especially at the moment. We've now got rid of Ronaldo. We've got a Martial who is a good player, but he's too injury prone. That leaves Rashford going through the middle. So theoretically, if we sell Rashford and let's for instance say we get Gapko, we still need to go and sign 2, maybe 3 strikers. And then obviously you got the added benefit that he plays along. He can play on the wing as well. So Rashford does bring a lot to Manchester United's team, and we can't afford to lose that. If they're coming in with stupid money, and it's got to be stupid money or a crazy offer, then it's going to be hard to turn down. If they come in and say, here's 120 million pounds for Rashford, or here's 100 and something million pounds for Rashford, then it'd be very, very difficult unless our takeover is complete and we've got mega rich owners. We're talking billionaire owners, because then they won't be cared about the money. They'll just want the best. And then maybe we might see a deal. I was joking in the background before we went live, so you'll have heard me say this. Maybe we turn around to Paris Saint-Germain and go, okay, you want Marcus Rashford, we'll give you Marcus Rashford, but we'll give you an extra £20 million and we'll take Mbappe off you. Seeing as though you're coming after one of our prolific stars, we'll take one of yours. This Marcus Rashford deal that they're trying to do is basically to replace Neymar, because Neymar's getting old. and Neymar plays on the same side where Marcus Rashford's going to play, because he's not going to dislodge Mbappe from his centre forward role at all. That's basically impossible to do. So it's a bit worrying that they are coming in for him, especially at the moment, but we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Interestingly, and just to kind of sum up in closure, Neymar is somebody that's been heavily linked with a move to Chelsea. So obviously, we have seen domino effects in transfers before. One going one place resulted in somebody else going somewhere else, etc., etc. So maybe this is Neymar kind of going, okay, I've got X amount of time now to do it in the league where we don't have a procession for the cup before we even kick a ball in anger at the start of the season. Now, obviously, there's been exceptions to that rule, but looking at it now, Colum, it does seem that the landscape is ever changing. Endrick has pretty much ripped up the script in terms of the transfer fees that could be commanded by players. But of course, as always, we will be monitoring the situation. And World Cup football, I do believe, returns to the channel tomorrow.
Yes, so the World Cup football is back tomorrow. Moss will be covering all of that. We have a special one-off show on Saturday morning at 11:30, where I will be on, and I'll be joined by Tony, or the Silver One, as he's normally known in the chat. And then, of course, we've got the World Cup back again Saturday night.
Absolutely jam-packed weekend ahead. So thank you very much, as always, Colin, for joining me. And I want to also thank once more Global Mapping Surveys, who have provided us with wonderful sponsorship, and our partners Rate, the energy drink suppliers. If you want a more naturally based energy drink, be sure to check out Rate, and we do have a 10% discount code, which you can see at the very start of the show if you want to get that from them. But that is all we have time for tonight. This has been a very wonderful, special show, special slotted show of the Football Lounge. But from us, a very good night and good evening to you all.